Let's go ahead and look at how we're going to play this What a Friend We Have in Jesus, starting with my performance, which, as we all know, may not be exactly what we wind up learning, but it'll be very close. Now this arrangement is a little more involved than the last couple we've looked at. The first thing to look at is the same thing that happened farther along, where we're playing in the C chord and that little finger just jumps up. But since we've already seen it, I don't think that'll cause problems. There's a little tricky thing that well, it's not tricky. It's tricky in the sense that it sounds good and it's easy to do, so it's a good trick. When you go back from the F, you just put your index finger on the first fret of the third string and sort of play in between the bass notes, and then you're back to C. Now one thing that does happen on there is that we have a low E open bass string. Sometimes when I'm playing in a C, I get a little tired of doing that. Well, when you do that, you can actually get an extra bass note. And when I do, I actually keep this finger moving back to the fifth string, just because it's already used to doing that. So if you watch it, you would expect that bass note to be, again, the C on the fifth string, but in fact I hit the low open string for that kind of alternation. So that occurs in there, but it shouldn't take a great deal of attention if you know it's coming. Now here's a little walk down that we're going to do on the G chord. Here's a partial G chord that's used all the time. Middle finger on the second fret of the fifth string, little finger on the third fret of the second string. And almost any time, well, let's put it this way, certainly 3/4 of the time when you're playing in G and you see those two notes, it's going to be fingered that way as opposed to something like that. Once in a while you do use that, but that's much more common. And since we're starting that way, we just move those same two fingers down one fret, and then we come to there. And when we get to the G then, here's something you might not have done that's not hard and sounds good, and that is when we play our G chord, we can get a G7 by putting our little finger down on that F note on the third fret of the fourth string. So let's look at that little walk down. Again. Once more. Then we come back and we repeat. And the rest of the A shouldn't really cause any problems. Though there is one thing to look at, actually. I spoke too quickly. Here's a hammer-on that's going to come with the bass note. Now, a lot of very good guitar players always do their hammer-ons in between the bass notes, so they go or something like this. Okay, the left hand is going to be on going to an F chord. So you play a C, then we have to pick the open third string. Now we're going to have a hammer-on that's going to be made with our middle finger on the second fret of the third string. But at the same time as that finger goes down, your thumb is going to catch the first fret of the bass string. But the real coordination that you have to watch out for here is basically between this left middle finger and your right thumb. So that these two things have to move at the same time. That would be your right thumb is going to go at the same time. So that's something to be careful of. Now the B section has a couple more things to look out for in terms of left-hand fingerings. First, we go back to this thing on the G that we did before, that partial shape with the middle and little fingers on the fifth and second strings. And they move down again, but this time they move back up. Now leave both those fingers down and then add to that chord, make a G7th, but with your little finger still down. So your index finger goes to the first fret of the high string and your ring finger goes over to the bass string, third fret. Okay, then we go back to C, and we've got a sequence of chords here that's interesting. Now this is sort of a passing chord going from the C to an E minor, and then we go to A minor 7th, and then we'll come to a more difficult chord, but let's look at that first. When we're going to do this, our normal E minor is really with those two fingers, but in this case it works best. Pick up your ring finger and let your index finger come over from the first fret of the second string to the second fret of the fifth string. And then it goes right back for the A minor 7th chord that we've already seen and farther along. Let's do that once more. Now, to get to the next chord, let's just look at this very carefully. Pick up your middle finger. So your little finger is still down on the third fret of the high string, your index finger is still down on the first fret of the second string. Now we're going to slide those two fingers up. The little finger is going to come up one fret to the fourth fret of the high string, and your index 2 frets to the third fret of the second string. And then the other two fingers will come down on the fourth fret, so that your middle finger is on the fourth fret of the bass string, your ring finger on the fourth fret of the third string. So we came from here. You'll want to practice that change a little bit. It's unfamiliar, but it's really not difficult. And that's a nice E7 shape. If you look at it, you can see that looks like a D7 that we've just moved up. So if we do all those chords, I'll do it again. And once more. Okay, now we're on our E7th. Don't move your hand. The next thing we're going to go to is an F6th. And the way we get there is to pick up our index and middle fingers, but again leaving down the little finger on the high string. He's now on the fourth fret. And the ring finger is on the fourth fret of the third string. So those two should still be there. We simply slide those two up one fret. And now we lay our index finger down, so it's doing a half bar across the top 4 strings on the third fret. And that's an F6 chord when we play the top 5 strings. You don't want to play that open bass string, of course, because you'll get in trouble with that, the note there. And what happens here after we get there, so that's that nice sounding chord, and here's what I like to do, is to add our thumb in there on the third fret of the bass string. Now actually you could play this arrangement for those, some people say they don't like to use their thumbs or it hurts them. Generally when I get to teach them privately for a little while, I convince them pretty quickly that it's more painful to listen to me complain about it than it is to actually use your thumb. But if it really does hurt you, and I realize some people have had you know, operations or accidents and they really don't have tendons in there and things, then you can just play that same bass note again. But I think that that low G sounds real pretty. And you'd be glad to know that now we get back into terra cognita. We know what we're doing from here on. There's that little quick pull off, but that shouldn't cause any problems. And then we have this walk down on G again. Go ahead and play through the B part, because I think that by far the most difficult parts of this arrangement are in the B. Of course, we play going out with the sort of A section again. Well, I think we're ready for the split screen, part, and we'll take a good, slow, hard look at what a friend we have in Jesus.